In this lesson, we will be learning about the basic controls or the basic commands in Illustrator. We will be also learning some of the basic tools with which we can do the basic editing, and also we will be learning about the Artboard tool. These are the foundational aspects and also the fundamentals of Illustrator, and we will be building on to the advanced stuff from these foundational things. So let's begin. So the first basic control or command is zoom in and zoom out. So we can zoom into the artboard or zoom out of the artboard. So for this we need to use the keyboard shortcut Control plus to zoom in, or Command plus and Control minus or Command minus to zoom out. Right, and we can just hold the middle mouse and pan the artboard here. So this is panning, and we can just hit a tab to enter the full screen mode. So we can see here, just hit the tab and we can toggle the full screen mode. Right, here we also have the command F. We need to hit F twice so that we can only see the artboard and we can just hide all the panels. And if we hit F once, we will return to the normal screen mode. You can also do it by just clicking on this change screen mode option below the toolbar. Right, now we understood some of the basic commands, and let's zoom out a little bit by hitting Control minus or Command minus. And if you want to fit the artboard to the screen or to its original position, we can simply use the keyboard shortcut Control 0 or Command 0. So when you either zoom in too much or zoom out too much, we can bring our artboard back to its normal position by just hitting the command or the keyboard shortcut Control 0 or Command 0. Right, and we can use H or spacebar to pan. We can also do it by holding the middle mouse button. So this is the artboard which we have created when we first created our document, and to activate our artboard, here at the bottom of the tools panel we can find the artboard tool. The keyboard shortcut for the artboard tool is Shift O. So here it is, and once the artboard is activated, we can see a bounding box around the artboard, and we can resize our artboard. We can change its size, and we also have an option to create multiple artboards just by clicking on these plus symbols. So we can see here I can create any number of artboards. So artboard is basically the work area. We can create multiple designs in multiple artboards, and we can export these multiple designs as a single file. So we will see how to export in later classes. Right, and we can also delete these artboards just by clicking on the artboard, but the most important thing is the artboard tool needs to be activated by hitting Shift plus O, and once we select the artboard, we can simply hit delete key to delete any particular artboard. Right, so this is all about the artboard. And one final thing is we can also resize the artboard from the values that we find over this control panel. So we can change the width, the height, and also the X position and Y position of the artboards by just placing values in these fields. So something like this. So here inside the toolbar there are a number of tools, but now we will see some of the basic tools that are necessary for us for shape editing or vector graphics. So on top we have this selection tool. So we will be using this tool to select objects and also move them. And besides this selection tool, we have this direct selection tool, and we will be using it to modify the shape of the objects. Okay, but the most important tools that we are supposed to use are, right now here we have a number of shapes. Here we have 5 different shapes. We will first bring this panel on top of the screen here. So we can just simply click on this arrow icon and just bring this panel on top of our Illustrator interface, so that it will be easy for us to create these shapes. So these are the 5 basic shapes here: the rectangle, the rounded rectangle, the ellipse, the polygon, the star, and here the last one is not a shape tool. We will be looking at this flare tool later. We'll first look at these tools, these basic shape tools, and we'll first create the rectangle. And once we select the rectangle, we need to just look at the bottom portion of this toolbar. We can see the color box or the color palette here, or we can also call it the color swatch. This is the fill color swatch. We will just double click on it, so that we'll be opening the color picker, and we can pick a color for our rectangle shape or rectangle tool. And now we will create our rectangle. There are 2 ways to create our rectangle. One way is we can just simply drag a box on our artboard and create this rectangle. This is one way of creating the rectangle. And the another way is, before creating, we just need to select our rectangle tool and then click on our artboard. We just need to click. So when we click, a dialog box pops up. Here we can see the width and height of this dialog box. We can just mention the width and height of our choice. If we want, we can just put 20 as a width and 10 as a height, 20 inches and 10 inches, and we can simply click OK. So here we have created a rectangle. Now we can use the selection tool. The keyboard shortcut for the selection tool is V, and then we can just move the rectangle wherever we want on our artboard. We can also keep it outside our artboard, but let's keep it inside our artboard. And we can then just resize it. We can see a bounding box around this rectangle. We can just drag the bounding box and resize it. And there is also one more thing that we can do. If we want a proportional scaling, we can just hold shift and drag any of the corners of this rectangle, and we can also center scale by just holding Alt or Option and shift and dragging any of the corners of the rectangle. This is center scaling. We just need to hold Alt or Option along with the shift key and then drag any of the corners to center scale the object. Right. And the next thing we are supposed to look into is the fill color and the stroke color. See, here we can see the fill color, which is the inside color of the rectangle, and behind the fill color box is the stroke color. So the stroke is the border color of the rectangle. We can see the stroke actually, but the stroke currently is very thin, so we can increase the stroke size. Here in the control panel we have the option stroke. We can just increase the number of points and make the stroke thick. So now we can clearly see the black stroke around the rectangle, and we can either disable or enable the stroke or fill. For this we have some shortcuts, so let's check these shortcuts first. So to disable the fill, first we need to activate the fill. Currently the fill is active here. We can just look at this fill swatch here. It is active, so we just need to disable it. To disable it, we just need to hit the slash key, which is besides the shift key. So now the fill is disabled, only stroke is active. And if we want to bring back the fill, all we have to do is we simply need to click on this small icon, the color icon, or we can also use the keyboard shortcut less than. So we can either use the keyboard shortcut less than, or we can simply just click on this color icon below the fill color box. Then to disable the stroke, we have to first activate the stroke. To activate the stroke, which is currently behind the fill, we can see here. To bring the stroke in front of the fill, we simply need to use the keyboard shortcut X. Right, now the stroke is on top of the fill. Now to disable the stroke, we simply have to hit the same slash. Right, now we can see there is no stroke for this rectangle, and the stroke is disabled and only the fill is visible. And once again, to activate the fill and disable it or change the fill color, we just have to hit X, so that the fill color box appears in front of the stroke color box. Right, and we will first change the stroke color here. We will change it to some pink color, and we will increase the stroke value here. We'll make the stroke width a little bit thick. Now we can do one more thing here. We can interchange the fill color and the stroke color. To interchange the fill color to stroke color or stroke color to fill color, we can simply use the keyboard shortcut Shift plus X. Shift plus X will swap the colors, and we can also just change the fill color here, and if we hit Shift plus X, we can just swap the colors. Right. To rotate this rectangle or any other object, we simply have to move our mouse on top of any corner, and we need to move our mouse a little bit away from any of the corners till the icon changes into a curved double-sided arrow. We then have to just use our left mouse and drag to rotate the rectangle or any other object. And there is also one more way to rotate the objects. We can simply hold shift and rotate so that the object rotates for every 45 degrees. The object snaps to the 45-degree angle. So we can check here. This is helpful to us if we want to just rotate the object specific for 90 degrees. Let's also look at the other objects that we have in this tools panel. So this is the rounded rectangle. So this rounded rectangle will create a rectangle that has rounded corners. So we can see here, we can create a rounded corners, and also if we want to just round any of the specific corners of this object, so we can just simply click on that particular corner or this circle that is close to that particular corner, and then simply drag. So in this way we can just make one of the corners sharp and the other corners rounded. So just like this, and we can make it rounded. Right, let's also look at this ellipse. Right, here we have the ellipse, and if we just select the ellipse tool and create the ellipse, here we can see we are creating an oval shape, but we don't want an oval shape. Let's create a perfect ellipse. And if we want to create a perfect ellipse, we can simply hold shift and then drag the ellipse. Now we have created a perfect ellipse. Right, and then we have the polygon. So we can see a polygon is a multi-sided shape. It has many sides or many points. So here we have created a polygon with 6 sides, and if you want more sides, here on the control panel we have this shape properties options, and we can just increase the number of points or sides. So we can also turn the rectangle into a triangle here. Right, and we can use the selection tool to move or activate any of the objects. And then the next one is the star. So here we have the star, and we can see an icon on top of the bounding box around this star. So if we just use the left mouse and drag that icon, we can change the shape of the star. Now it looks like a sun shape, and if we just bring it down, we can reduce the number of points on the star. So something like this. Right, and then here we will come back to the rectangle tool, and if we want to create a square instead of a rectangle, we simply need to hold shift and drag the rectangle shape. So now we will be creating only the square and not the rectangle. Right, and one last thing is, here we have the direct selection tool. Keyboard shortcut is A. With this direct selection tool, we can select any of the corner or the corner points of any of the shape and modify the shape. So we can see here, so we can modify the shape, and we will be exploring more options by which we can modify and customize the shape according to our choice in the coming classes. And one thing is, we can select any of the points, and currently the points are very sharp. We have sharp corners, and we can make these corners rounded by simply selecting that particular corner point, and then here on the control panel we have an option that is convert selected anchor points to corner. Just click on that to convert it to a sharp corner, and then besides this option we have convert selected anchor points to smooth, to convert the points to a smooth corner. So here we can see, so here we have changed the shape of this rectangle. And then once we have made the corner smooth, we got some extra points, or we can call them handles, to just modify the shape even further. And we will just look at these things in detail in the upcoming classes. Right. One last thing we need to know is, if we are creating a star, so we can see how the star is tilting sideways. So if we want to maintain the star in its center position without tilting sideways, we can simply hold shift and create the star. The same thing we can do with the polygon. So if we hold shift and drag and create the polygon, it will be fixed to its center position. If not, it will tilt sideways. So just remember this one point. We don't want the shapes to tilt sideways. We want the shapes to fix to their center position. This is all about the basic tools and how to just control the shape and the size of these tools. Stay tuned.